Good. Brian, when we think, Todd's applied this in general, take the concept of Moroni's use of stratagem. Apply that for us to our day. The use of strategy.
Well, I think Moroni is exemplifying that we need to realize that we'll think of Amalickiah. I mean, Amalickiah, you can't say that he was stupid. You can't say that he was dumb. You can't say that he didn't have some real brains behind what he was trying to do there. And you needed a man like Moroni and men like him to stand up to him and to create some sort of strategy to overcome him. Well, it's the same thing for us. As in our spiritual battles, the world offers many complex, sophisticated ways of getting at us, whether it be through media or whatever it might be. We need to be on top of that. We need to be wary of those things, cautious, and be you see what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
As far as...
It reminds me, in fact, of the New Testament teachings of Jesus that, I don't mean to be crass about this, but what he says essentially is, my followers, my soldiers ought to be as bright or brighter than those of the world. In other words, if you were half as smart and had half as much ingenuity and half as much energy and enthusiasm as the enemies do, and half as much brains, we could defeat them. And I think the Lord is constantly calling upon us to use a strategic warfare in fighting against the devil. I know you made a comment to me once about how it isn't just one area.
Yeah, I was just thinking of in Alma chapter 50, Mormon explains how in verse 1, Moroni didn't stop making preparations for war even when they weren't right in the thick of battle. But Alma chapter 50 lists multiple lines of defense. There's heaps of earth, there's ridges, there's timbers, there's pickets, there's towers, there's rocks, and there's stones. And so I think we can learn from this. Sometimes our youth will say, well, we want to be chaste, be morally clean, so our line of defense is we won't do anything wrong. Well, that's only one. They need to add some other ones. We won't steady date before the guy's mission. We won't be alone together. We won't go into bedrooms. And that's basically what the honor code is around BYU. It's trying to list multiple lines of defense to keep us protected.
Yeah, we can't just be unilateral in our approach to facing a multifaceted enemy.
That's right. That's right. And Moroni here, he's not saying, okay, let's just, we don't have to work so hard on getting that done, or we don't have to. Well, he is right down the line on, we've got to do this, and he's not creating any openings for the enemy there at all.
Yeah, and I like Mormon's wording, verse 12, and thus Moroni with his armies, which did increase daily because of the assurance of protection, cut off the strength of the power of the Lamanites.
That's excellent.
That is good.
In the time we have left, let's focus on Moroni's title of liberty. It seems to me there are those items, those instruments, those devices in the Book of Mormon that show up, whether they be the Liahona or in the Old Testament, the brazen serpent. Mm-hmm. But there are always these physical standards, ensigns, if you will, that the great ones use to remind people. What do you make of Moroni's title of liberty? What does it seem to be about to you, Brian?
To me, it's more than just a rallying call.
So it's not just, let's have a pep rally.
No. I think there's more in the way of covenant making going on there. Maybe even a renewal of covenants with the people, and especially with God.
Yeah.
That they are going to obey Him and follow the direction that is given to them through Moroni, of course. So it's much more than like you said, a pep rally.
Yeah. Todd, would you read for us chapter 46, verses 19 through 22?
And when Moroni had said these words, he went forth among the people, waving the rent part of his garment in the air, that all might see the writing which he had written upon the rent part, and crying with a loud voice, saying, Behold, whosoever will maintain this title upon the land, let him come forth in the strength of the Lord, and enter into a covenant that they will maintain their rights and their religion, that the Lord God might bless them. And it came to pass that when Moroni had proclaimed these words, Behold, the people came running together with their armor girded about their loins, rending their garment in token, or as a covenant, that they would not forsake the Lord their God, or, in other words, if they should transgress the commandments of God or fall into transgression, and be ashamed to take upon them the name of Christ, the Lord should rend them even as they had rent their garments. Now this was the covenant which they made, and they cast their garments at the feet of Moroni, saying, We covenant with our God, that we shall be destroyed even as our brethren in the land northward, he's referring to the Jaredites, if we shall fall into transgression, yea, he may cast us at the feet of our enemies, even as we have cast our garments at thy feet to be trodden underfoot, if we shall fall into transgression.
You know, it reminds me of that wonderful Old Testament illustration, and maybe we can close with this, that the Lord always provides a means for his people to escape destruction, be it physical or spiritual, and that he'll never leave us alone. That wonderful occasion where Elisha the prophet is housed, as it were, with the young lad, and the Syrian armies are surrounding them. And as he wakes up in the morning, the young lad sees that they are surrounded by the enemies. And the answer of Elisha, "Fear not, for they that be with us are more than they that be with them," is a powerful message. But I think also the thing that really touches me, the young man, it's as if he looks out and says, I can count, and there ain't but two of us. And then that beautiful message that comes through as Elisha prays and says, "O Lord, open his eyes that he may see." And it says the eyes of the young lad were opened, and he saw the chariots of Israel, the horses, the flaming horses in flames, who were there to protect his servants. I think that's a phenomenal message to us that comes from the Book of Mormon, that we are never alone when we're on the Lord's errand, and when he's with us, we're never in the minority.
And in Alma 50:23, it says, "Behold, there never was a happier time, even though it was right in the middle of this time of war."
That's a good place to end.